Zuplo has launched the MCP Gateway, which is a super powerful way of being able to create a Zuplo deployment for any of the MCP servers that you use inside of your organization. Doesn't matter if they're third party, internal, or coming from partners, you can plug them all in to the gateway and manage the authentication and tool curation from directly within it. And I'm going to show you how to set that up in this video. Let's get started. So the place where all of this takes place is inside of the Zuplo API Gateway. You can create a brand new Zuplo project to do this. And once you're there, you just jump over to the code tab right here, and you'll be presented with these options here. Now, if you are managing an API in here, then you can do that too. If you're doing one of our dynamic MCP servers, you can do that here. But in this case, what we're just going to do is work specifically with MCP Gateway route. So in order to start this off and get our first MCP server added, we'll click on Add Route. And here we have this option for MCP Gateway Virtual Server, and that's the one that we want to choose. So we click on it, and we're presented with this modal of some predefined MCP servers that we can add. So there's a whole bunch here that we use inside of Zuplo, and we know that many of you are going to be using it as well. So you can select from this if you see the MCP server that you want to add right here. And in this case, we will select one from here. We're going to go for Linear as our example. And what this does is just pre-fill some of the stuff that we already know. So we know the name, we know the MCP URL for the Upstream server from Linear, and the path that we want to put it at, which in this case is going to be /MCP/linear-v1. This is customizable, so you can change this to whatever you want. We'll click on Next. And then we need to decide what our inbound authentication for this is actually going to be. So if you're in an organization that's running single sign-on or running your own IDP, perhaps you use Okta for single sign-on, maybe WorkOS, or in this case, Auth0, then this is where you plug that in. So all of the authentication that you're already using to access all of the different services inside your org is now going to be able to grant you access to these MCP servers, and it's already set up for you. We'll choose Auth0 as our identity provider in this case. And then what we need to do is set up a couple of things for Auth0. So what this does is it creates a policy name and sets up a couple of different things. These are environment variables that are required for Auth0 to actually work with the MCP Gateway virtual server. These environment variables you'll need to go grab, and you'll need to set these up inside of Zuplo. I'll show you where you do that. I've already set these up in advance, but I'll show you actually where you add the environment variables in just a bit. But make a note of what the names are if you're setting this up for the first time. You'll need the domain, you'll need the Auth0 client ID, and the client secret. You can grab those from your Auth0 project, or if you don't have access to that, then ask someone inside your organization who does and get them to set these up for you. So the next thing we can choose is what we want to do with these Upstream tools from the Linear MCP server in this case. And we have two options. So the first is pass-through. And what that means is it's going to take everything that the Linear MCP server exposes, and it's just going to pass it straight through to the end users that authenticate with this virtual MCP server. So whatever tools are available, whatever prompts are available, anything there is just going to come directly through. So everything that is available will also be available via this. Now, that's fine. If you have complete trust in everything that's happening there, you can do that and go, yes, pass-through is absolutely fine. If you want to have a little bit more control over the access of different tools that are available from an MCP server, then you have this additional option here, which is Curate. This will then go grab all of the tools that are exposed, and it will give you the ability to select which of them you actually expose downstream inside of the MCP server. They are grouped by the actions that they can take. So in this case, there's 28 read-only tools that are available here. There's also a list of destructive tools. So these are ones you maybe want to actually consider not allowing access to, or being selective in terms of the access that you give. So what I'm going to do is curate some tools here. So actually I'm going to turn off all of the destructive tools that are available here. There's no prompt resources or resource templates here, so we're just dealing with the tools. We've got all the read-only tools, all of the safe write tools, and none of the destructive tools will be available once we get this set up. So if we click on Next, what we're going to say is our authentication for this case is going to be OAuth. That is accepted by the Linear Upstream MCP server, so that's absolutely fine. You do have the choice here, especially when working with custom MCP servers, which I'll show in another video, to do different kinds of upstream authentication, such as API keys. But in this case, the upstream is also OAuth, so we can leave this selected, and our client registration can also be dynamic, there is no need for manual in this case. So we can click on finish, and then we can see now that everything here is set up. So what we have is our Upstream server is set up and in place, and this is the request chain that Zuplo has set up inside of the gateway for this. So we are doing our authentication with Auth0. We are doing an Upstream request to the linear MCP server, and then we're filtering here to remove some of the tools that we don't want people to have access to. So that's all good. We are now set up with that first one. So if I click on save, it will redeploy all of that. One of the things that's very important you set up before you do this is obviously the authentication element. If you see this Auth0 inbound policy right here, if I click on this to open it, in the UI that we went through, there was these 3 environment variables that need to be set up. These are pretty standard for Auth0. Pretty much every Auth0 application that you've ever seen requires you to give these over if you're using it for authentication. Inside of Zuplo, if you want to set these up, you can click on settings, and then in environment variables, and then go and add those variables here. It will redeploy the environment that you're in so that they are ready to be used. But I've got the Auth0 client, the client secret, and the domain. And I'll show you quickly inside of my application in Auth0. I have an application set up right here. It's just called MCP Gateway. And inside of the settings, this is where you get that from. So the domain is here, the client ID is there, and the client secret is there. These are the 3 that you need to get if you're doing this and setting it up to use Auth0 inside of Zuplo. So go back to the code tab. I'm going to grab the gateway URL from right here, and remember that this is the path that we need to add on here. And I'll jump over here into Claude. What I'm going to do is add the MCP virtual server that we just created for linear with our curated selection of tools into Claude and start using it. In order to do that, we go to settings and connectors, and then it moves you to customize. And then here in connectors, we can add the gateway. So let's add a custom connector. And the name in this case is still going to be linear, because that is the server that we're ultimately fronting here with Zuplo. And then we put in the URL of the gateway, and it's MCP/linear, if I can spell it right, -v1. So there we go ahead and click on add. And you can see now it says you're not connected to linear yet. So what we're going to do is go through the whole process of connecting, and that's going to take us through Auth0, and it's going to connect Upstream as well. So we'll do that first. Okay, so we get the screen from Auth0. Obviously inside of your own Auth0 instance, you can customize this, but this is just the default. And then I will continue with Google. I'll authenticate with my account. And then I get this screen here, which is being presented to me from Zuplo about authorizing the access to the linear MCP server Upstream, so connecting my account. I can go ahead and approve that. And there we go. It's now completely connected, and I have got access to a set of tools. Now, if you remember, we curated the tools that are actually available in here. So if I minimize this, you can see that I've got access to these write/delete tools, the safe write tools, and also the read-only tools right here. I don't have access to the more destructive tools that are presented via the standard linear MCP server because they have been filtered out. So let's quickly test things out. So here we are in the main Claude chat window, and if we go here to the connectors, you can see that I have linear listed in here and it's turned on. So I can say, what is my latest ticket? And it's going to go and list anything that relates to me from inside of there. I've clicked on allow, so that's going to now make the request, and all of this is routing through here. So there we go. My latest ticket is to update what is Zuplo. It's in the docs project, currently in backlog, no priority. Fantastic, that's great. So back here in the portal, we can take a look at some of the analytics around that. So if we go click on the analytics tab and then on MCP, we can see some of the stuff that just happened. So we've already got 40 events that have taken place. We can see that the top capabilities so far are list issues on the linear MCP server, which would be right because that's all we have done. And then we've got our one top user, which is me. in this case, and a whole bunch of other information as well. And obviously, once you have a lot of people using these virtual MCP servers, this all starts to populate very, very nicely, but you get a full overview of everything that's happening and all of the different tools that are being used, how often and by who, and how successful they're being, as well as any upstream errors that are coming from that as well. So you can really identify a lot of things that are taking place inside of your virtual MCP servers and the issues that they may be facing. That is how quick it is to get a virtual MCP server set up inside of Zuplo to start fronting and curating the tools around the MCP servers that you use. Obviously, this is just one. You can go through and add a new route for any of the MCP servers that you use, including custom MCP servers from partners or your own internal services. There's going to be more videos on this upcoming very, very soon, showing you all different kinds of things that you can do with this very powerful MCP gateway from Zuplo.